Moshe Emes v'Seirusa Emes. There's something we have to really understand, that the Torah is Torah's Moshe, belongs to Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu brought it down, and he gave it to the Klal Yisrael. Maschi le'Yeshia, le'Yeshia le'Zekayim, how it goes further. But we got what Torah we've got. But the way of the behavior of a Yid is we've got from Moshe Rabbeinu. So it asks some big question. Let's ask a simple question, which I've got always asked, and I really haven't received a good answer. It says the Yidden were released from Mitzrayim, Leishine, Shmom, they didn't change their name, as Levishom, they didn't change their clothes, as Leshonom, and they didn't change the language they talked. It's very hard to understand that, because we see Moshe Rabbeinu changed his name. He was called Moshe, and he kept his name, which the Bas Paroi gave him. Then he dressed as an Egyptian because he was in the house of Paroi, and later on he came Ish Mitzri, Yitziluni, it says, when he came to Midian. He ran away from the Yidden, he came to Midian, from Mitzrayim, and he came to Midian, Ish Mitzri, so he was dressed as a Mitzri. Rashi says he was dressed like a Mitzri, that's why they called him a Mitzri. So he changed his lavush, and most probably Shonim he also changed. He most probably spoke the local language, he didn't talk Lashon HaKodesh. So we see he was called Torah's Moshe. It's still called Torah's Moshe. The answer is a very important thing, which in today's society we think is very important. In today's society we think it's very important. Leshin Yashma, we don't change, we call Yiddish names, it's very important. We talk Yiddish. And then the most important thing we think of, which is the whole Yid, is clothes. We think the Stramel, the Bekischer, the Strockers, the Weiße Socken. There's so many people who think that if they... Is he Chassidish? Of course! He goes to the Bekischer. That doesn't mean you're Chassidish. Moshe Rabbeinu, there's no other higher person in Klal Yisrael than Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go dress Yiddish. So that seems to be, when we talk about lavush, we mean something else. We talk about the lavush, the soul is closed with the body which is given on this world, and that is called the lavush. And Moshe Rabbeinu was dressed with the Yiddish lavush. His behavior structure, that's what's important. How we behave is important. If we behave to one another, and how that's how important it is. If we behave in Odom Lechaveiroi like a Yid should, then we've got the lavush of a Yid. What's the Goimel Chasodim? That's what a Yid is about. And if we behave to a Yid, and we think the whole behaving of a Yid, it doesn't matter, we can do everything we want and behave like a Goy, but we go with a Stramel and a Bekischer, we think that's a Yid. There is some mistake in our understanding of what is a Yid. Some basic understanding, very much, of what is a Yid. And that's what really is meant. Moshe Emes v'Seirusa Emes. Have some better answers to the question, the question I've asked about the Shinash L'Shem, and you've got some better answer, you're welcome to come along and give me some better answer. But as far as I can see, the lavush, what we meant by Mitzrayim, by Yidden, didn't change. What was the way they were dressed on the outside of the lavush? It was more of the internal dressing of the soul, which is done through the body. That's what they mean by lavush, not just clothing, because clothing doesn't just keep you a Yid. If you don't behave like a Yid, then clothing doesn't help you to stay a Yid.
Zum Kisse, hallo, wenn die Tesse bringe.
This song really gets me to tears. How he sings it, Abba Brod, I think his name is, voll mit Gefühl. Voll mit Gefühl. Oben im Himmel ist du ein Glus. In jüdische Tränen haben sich so viel gegossen. Verwusst ist der Glus nicht viel. Ich will nicht mit Katrik sagen auf Jeden. I don't want to be mit Katrik on Jeden. But one of the reasons, how do we fill up this glass of tears? Als Jeden halten sich zusammen. Und alle Jiden beten zusammen, im Füllen mit seinen Tränen, mit der jüdischen Tränen der Glus. Ein Mensch kann nicht umfüllen auf Glus mit Tränen, aber zusammen kann man umfüllen auf Glus mit Tränen. The sibbe is what we don't fill the glass up together. We are not filling the glass up because we don't cry together. There's too many different groups, too many different kinds. I once said about the Shem Islami Ten Hashem Buchsam Bashulim, the whole koyach from the survival of the state of Israel after so much disaster, and how did it survive after such a lot of terrorists want to break it in? When there was Shulim, when I once was walking in the streets of Israel fast just before the 67 war, and they went past the Ger Rebbe, and the Ger Rebbe didn't really let anybody go out in the streets because he didn't want to see the Buchrim who didn't go in the army, the army, and he didn't let them go out in the streets. He told them, but by some chance, I was going past in Eretz Yisrael in the street, and there were two friars walking past, and one says to the other, he looked into the Beis Medrash and he saw the fromme davening. Ze tov shadatim mit palim b'shvilanu. It's good that the fromme are davening was. The Sharet Demuas was together. They was together. They stuck together. The Sharet Demuas was together. They were crying together. And if Am Yisrael is together, nobody can beat them. There's the Rachmunis of the Rabbi Shalom. In the togetherness of Am Yisrael, there's the Rachmunis from the Rabbi Shalom. This is something we don't teach. Something we don't teach in schools. That, you know, I see families who come together. Never husband has died, or the wife, her wife has died by one family. They put them together. And they don't work onto making one family unit. You get a divorced person or a divorcee. They get together and they don't try and make a Stieb zusammen. They haven't learned what means make them. Not how should they learn when even the first time married around, a couple are not living together. The husband for the wife for the husband. There's a special in Sholem Bayis. There's a special in Shchine, and the demolish of together of this couple praying to the Rabbi Shalom brings down the gewaltige children and brings down gewaltige hashpuas of panus and everything. Just listen to the way he sings this song. It's so hard to give it over this point that we need togetherness. We don't teach togetherness in school. We teach. I look at the regulations of a school. What is the new term? What are they asking for? The stocking should be like this. The hat should be like this. The this should be like that. The sleeve should be like that. It must be done here. You mustn't go this. What about midas? What about behavior? We're not asking any behavioral structure from the children. We've learned from the Goy. We think it's all in lavush. It's not in lavush. The lavush, like I've just said before, is the body. How to train the body. That's the lavush for the soul. How which the body gives onto the soul. How you behave. That becomes the lavush. That is the lavush. Not a few more stockings or a strict an inch up, an inch down. That doesn't make a difference. That's why we've produced no toilets. We have to produce toilets. We've got a soul. The body is the soul. The body is the lavush to the neshama. Just listen to this nigga. Schmeiß! Do you know, in the last Milchome in Auschwitz, there were Yidden who kept nothing, who kept no Shabbos. But they came to the last minute of shouting Shema Yisrael. They had an opportunity even to go away and not get lost by the Goyim. Some went even gemalet. They said, no, we're joining our Klal Yisrael. And they shouted Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Just because they didn't go with a shaitel or because they didn't go with the proper tznius all their life. Do you think they've got no Eilam Haba? Little is not nicht viel. If you think what I'm saying is not true, go and check up. Take the rule regulations. See how many of them ask for midas, breaking yourself one to another. See of them. No, the instructions are all in lavush. As if I go, because they think they put on the lavush. That's what makes them a yid. That's a tours.